And welcome to Pulp Mythos. I'm Brian here with Larry and Spencer, and we're going to be discussing American Horror Story, double feature, Death Valley, Season 10, Episode 8, Inside. Before we get started, if you haven't hit the like button or leave a comment, please do so. A lot of content on the channel. Go check out our Big Sky review. Check out our Only Murders in the Building. If you're not watching that show, I implore you, please watch that show. It's a great show. Um, yeah, this episode was better than last week, I think, because we spent most of the time in the 50s. Our biggest gripe from last week was the fact that the episode was split into 1950 storyline, focusing on Eisenhower, and then jumping to I guess it was the modern day. Didn't care for that storyline. Luckily, this week the divide was 25 minutes and 15 minutes. Love the Eisenhower stuff. Yeah, how did y'all feel about the split this week compared to last week? Did you think this episode was stronger, or
it was a better ratio? That's for damn sure.
That's cool.
I mean, if we're going to touch on the modern day stuff, this is how we prefer to do it. And while I still don't care about these kids, the getting a little more context from the past stuff made it a little more interesting. So it's like, okay, so this is what's going on. This is why you should care about these pregnancies, because it feeds into a lot of these past events. And maybe around the end of the season they'll be able to turn it around to make it so that I care about the modern day stuff, because I want to see a resolution to what happened in the past.
Yeah, because I'm curious about the modern day stuff. Like, I'm super interested into why it's going on, what's going on, but on the same note, I don't also want to see them interact with each other because it's garbage. So it's one of those things where the story itself is intriguing, but how it's being told, not so much.
Yeah, I just find the 50s storyline is just fun, and it bringing in all the historical figures and explaining, okay, we brought in Kennedy, Marilyn Monroe. We were explaining that, okay, it all ties into this conspiracy. Kennedy didn't, he wanted to expose it. Of course, we have the assassinations and stuff, all the stuff with Nixon. It's really cool taking actual history and sort of, creating this fiction around it. It's fun. And then you get to the modern day and it's just like, oh, we got aliens in us. And then you have the that first 10 minutes, it was nails on a chalkboard. I didn't care. I hated it. I was interested in the final maybe 5 minutes because it started to go somewhere. I'm like, okay, well, when we saw Steve Jobs, I was like, all right,
yeah,
I see where they're going. Okay, the hybrid storyline and everything. So I was okay with the final 5 minutes, but then I just couldn't stop thinking. As okay as I was with it, I can't imagine 2 more episodes of it.
Yeah, I'm super curious as to how not only are they going to tie the episodes together, and that when they showed the hybrid, I'm already convinced 100% now that the first season was done at episode 6. The first half, there is no carryover, which bums me out a little bit, but whatever. It does show me, however, that the route they're taking for the current generation could be more sci-fi and interesting, but it's one of those things where the cast, the actors for the 50s stuff, their acting chops are far superior to the ones that are.
It's night and day.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. It is night and day, and that is the biggest problem with the modern day story is the acting. Like you said, Brian, I love the Steve Jobs thing, and they could get very interesting with that. Just adding in, playing with some of these historical figures who have either died or gone missing or something. Like you could put a Chris Farley in there, even
fucking Tupac.
Tupac and Chris Farley hanging out.
Elvis.
It could get interesting, but just our main cast for the modern story is its biggest problem. And like when we finally and you mentioned the hybrid. When we finally saw that, I thought the hybrid looked kind of stupid. I wasn't a fan of that, of the design for the hybrid.
Agreed. And I also didn't like. I think it was on purpose because the show, their production values are usually pretty solid. All the stuff in the modern era, to me, looked shitty. And I'm talking about the effects. I'm talking about sort of the look of the rooms. I don't know. It came off as a low budget look, and I was thinking maybe that's intentional. I don't know.
Yeah, I agree with that too, because I mean that's the thing you do when you barely have a budget. You make a room in completely white, so you don't have to pay for a set. This whole thing could have been behind a green screen.
Even the tubes that were coming down into them, that I don't know, it looked really cheap to me.
It really did.
The way it looked, because all the 1950 stuff looks cool, and even though it's very simple, but even the effect of when they're in the one of the coolest sequence for me was when Eisenhower shows up and they're in the boardroom, and they're having their little conversation and debating whether or not they're going to work with the aliens, and she comes levitating in the room. It's the effect is so well done. It's creepy. Yes, it's an alien sci-fi story, but also you're getting sort of, if any Evil Dead fans out there, there's a very Evil Dead vibe going on with the way she was moving and the wide eyes and everything. I am assuming that's intentional, but because essentially it is possession. So I love that sequence. But yeah, like the modern day stuff, I'm like, man, somebody's gonna have to do a super cut where they cut all the modern stuff out and just put all the 50s stuff together as like one long movie.
That'd be great. Like, yeah, like you said, I'm glad you mentioned that too. Like the floating and everything. I do like that effect. That's a very good effect. Like you said, it's very eerie, and it's just it's like it seems like they spent their budget on the first half of this season, and like you said, and on the 50 stuff, and then they got to filming the modern day stuff, and maybe it was an afterthought, or maybe it was a studio suggested thing. It's like, yeah, how about we have a modern section to this? But I think the reason we have that is it may be linking with these experiments to the idea that maybe a lot of what because we got this we got hints of aliens throughout most seasons, I think, and it may be hinting that these experiments that they're doing are the reason for a lot of the eerie things we see in all these past seasons of American Horror Story.
Well, my thing is you look at the hybrid. So if this is what they're trying to do is create these hybrids, how are these hybrid people going to blend in? Because they sure as shit aren't going to be just walking around willy-nilly without anybody knowing who they are, because she's got one giant alien face. Like, it's this giant eye, like the whole side of her head. You can't hide that. Like, it's not a birth defect. That's clearly something that's odd. So how are they going to blend these hybrids into society? Or are they? Do they not care? They're just basically waiting to send their hybrids back to wherever planet they came from, because that's what they insinuated, that their planet was dying. They're so advanced they can help us, so we can either go along with it or they're just going to start killing people. So I just don't understand what the goal is yet, and there's only 2 episodes left. So that's my concern at this point, is that it's either going to be super rushed or not explained.
Do you think there's going to be anything in terms? So there's a subplot throughout the whole episode with Nixon, and he basically, there's that one conversation where he's like, "Look, we'll go along with this for now, but we're going to be plotting against them, and eventually we're going to attack." Do you think that's where this is leading? That maybe Eisenhower, they come up with a secret plan, and then that's obviously they're gone, but it'll get enacted, and it's going to be some kind of conflict in the end. I'm just throwing out ideas because you're like you said, Spencer, I don't know where it's going.
Well, and that's my greatest cause for concern at this point, is that, like I said, there's 2 episodes left. So there's 80 minutes, so an hour and 20 minutes left.
Maybe
so
maybe. Episode 6 was like 30.
Yeah. So maybe less, but there's so much to still unwrap that it's either going to leave a lot of questions, or it's just like the end of last season or last session. I don't know what's called, the 6th episode, It I felt like it was tying it up, but I felt like there were so many loose ends. And this one, there's no way to tie the stuff up. And like you guys said, there's been previous seasons with aliens and all this stuff, but at what point are they going to clarify the aliens? Because now there's hybrid aliens. Are these the people pulling the strings? Is it because with who they had Steve Jobs, and I think they're trying to basically create these alien hybrids, but they're trying to get some of the smartest of the human race, maybe. So maybe that's what they're, why they pick Steve Jobs or whatever. So,
well, I was just gonna say that's a very good point because like the whole modern crew, they all have like they have or they're working on like doctorate degrees and things, and so yeah, they're going for very smart and talented people.
I like how the Men in Black show up and they don't, wipe the doctor's mind. They just shoot her. I don't know why because I thought that was funny because, in the Men in Black films, if they neuralize you, they wipe your memory of the event, but they just straight pull a gun out and kill her. Like nobody else knows, right? She's like, no, bop, bop. I don't know. I almost think that was intentional as a joke.
Yeah. Yeah, because I expected a chase sequence or something, but no, they just shot the doctor and just straight up kidnapped him.
They just whooped their asses and dragged them out. There was no. You're right. It was pretty quick sequence. Felt like a budget sequence. I'm like, all right, we got to get them from point A to point B. How are we gonna do it? We're just gonna get in there, kick their ass, and that's it.
I'm gonna call BS if this crew manages to escape from them.
She'll figure out some way because remember she's like anti-technology, so maybe that'll apply in some way.
She's been away from technology long enough that her Facebook doesn't link to her, so she can't
be tracked
or something. I don't know.
She's gonna fight them off with Ewok style Rube Goldberg machines and whatnot. Is that what we're going for?
Another scene that I thought was a standout was the monster baby sequence. I thought that was pretty cool, where they were Eisenhower's just he's like, I'm getting in there. Like, sir, you can. He's like, I'm fucking doing this, and he goes in with a gun and his crew, and they shoot it and kill it after it killed Amelia Earhart. Like I said, I love all that. I'm like, yeah, it's all cool.
Those are very cool scenes, and that makes me wonder. Well, that makes me hope that the ending of this, because Eisenhower scenes are so cool, that what we're going for, at least with the modern day stuff, because I feel like our last episode, it's just going to focus on that. And since we've seen characters live longer than they possibly could due to the technology and the alien intervention, that that towards the end of this season, we'll have the Eisenhower and Nixon stuff overlap with the modern day stuff, and they'll be involved in the ending because
you think
potentially they're still alive potentially.
I'd be down for that.
Like it's a possibility, given the way this show has worked.
They both have guns. They're like old times. They just start gunning down all the aliens.
Well, I mean, the current time, there's at least one that made it, but it is funny that it feels like the 50 section feels like an old Twilight Zone. It feels like an old 50s show where even that acting that's far superior to the more current day, it's still kind of ridiculous and still kind of outlandish, but it's done well enough to where it's entertaining. Whereas the new stuff, it's still outlandish and crazy, but the acting isn't done well enough to kind of carry it.
The guy, I mean, it's a legitimate question he had, but he kept repeating. He's like, how's it going to come out of me? I was like, do the math, dude.
So excited.
Well, he just kept saying it and saying, I mean, hey, it's a fair concern.
Yeah.
But, it, like you said, it got a little cheesy. And then the whole hybrid thing, I don't know. like we said, night and day. The 50 stuff is really entertaining. The modern day stuff's just not, and that's where we're at.
Well, I think the big twist or the big payoff is going to be possibly we get to the end and whatever plan they enact, these kids or Nixon and Eisenhower, we'll find out that there are literally only two of these actual aliens, so like one or two, because we only have evidence of there being one or two of them, that they have great powers, but maybe that if we resisted, we could have solved this problem right away, because they're trying to reproduce, but they're trying to reproduce via experimentation. So that leads me to believe that there's not a whole lot of them.
That's a good theory. Yeah, maybe there's just like two of them. That would be funny. Two little Dalek squid things.
Trying to not reinvent, but resecure their place in society, and they just keep fucking up. So the hybrid's the best one so far.
I like the one guy they were introducing technology and fiber optics and stuff, and he's just like, "This is sorcery!" And he pulls his gun out. I laughed so hard at that scene. He was like, "No, it's from the devil," and he's like trying to kill them all, and they blow his head off. Well, I just love the fact that he was introduced to like fiber optics, and he thought it was like evil. It was great.
I love that scene too. That was also one of my favorites.
But yeah, I don't have much else to say. Anything else regarding this episode?
No.
Okay. Well, we'll 2 left, so we will be doing those 2 episodes. As I said before, check out some of the other stuff on the channel. We got what we got going? Big Sky. Check out our Big Sky stuff. Check out Only Murders in the Building. Other stuff coming up in November. A lot of cool shows coming up, so look for that, and we will see y'all next time.
Bye.
Bye.